There was a bright color garland in the lights of my garden. Said, calm yourself, darling. I'll find your peace of mind for you. Into the darkness we'll find our freedom. Our hearts are one and together they beating. Stars they are falling, the night so appealing. This feels like love and love feels like healing. Anticipation slowly is building. We'll find our peace in this night so revealing. This is the moment I hear it call.
Welcome back to the Coliseum of Fantasy Knowledge. This is the IDP Fantasy Empire. Coming back to you after a little bit of a stint off. Been working a lot, watching these preseason games, getting a lot of stuff done. Just nice to be back. Nice to be back in the studio, man.
Yeah, I missed you, Paul. I know we hang out on the regular, but it's nice to be back behind the mic.
Yeah, exactly. So, what's been going on, man?
Not much. Been pretty busy with work. Been taking my free time, doing some Madden, hitting up the preseason. Really, it's the season right now.
Yeah, it really is. Getting ready for drafts and all that fun stuff, because it's about D-Day almost for most drafts.
Yep.
And, that basically leads into our draft kit. We went ahead and decided to reduce the price for you latecomers and getting that $6.99 price out now. Again, still way worth the money on here. I mean, we got so many tabs. Buck, break them down for us, man.
All right, we've got 19 tabs. Our first one's the welcome tab. Our second tab is the table of contents. I wouldn't really count them. So you have 17 quality tabs. You've got our scoring system. That tells you how we view and rank players. You can find that on our website, idpfantasyempire.com. What we like to do with our scoring system is we like somewhere in between heavy tackle and high or big play production.
Big plays.
So you get guys like Marcus Peters who are worth a damn. You know?
Exactly.
Whereas in a high tackle league, he would not be worth much.
Yeah, and there's some teams that don't even count punt returns. So, I mean, you guys have like a Dory Jackson and some of these other guys who are good in special teams.
Yeah.
And kind of made their stint there and then broke off.
Yeah, and we're here to kind of weave that in between on what the locals are doing with their regular IDP leagues and what we do with our IDP leagues. If you are a commissioner out there and you have questions, go ahead and hit us up at our email. It's idpfantasyempire@gmail.com, and our Twitter is @idpempire. Our next tab is the IDP depth charts. This is going to be every single team, and it's going to have every depth chart for 2 players back. So if your guy that you've been hiding on your Dynasty League is not there, it's probably time to cut ties with him. He probably is not going to get a lot of playing time this year, unless we see something in the preseason that makes us go to believe that we should rank him higher. Next, we've got strength of schedule. This may be worth just the $6.99 alone.
Oh, absolutely. I've said that since we started this draft kit.
We are going to do a dynamic strength of schedule, and we will re-rank it throughout the season if things pop up. If they're marginal, I'm not really worried about it because you've already got your players, and you're not going to be trading a lot of your players just because they play for the Cincinnati Bengals. That was a dig at you.
I'm trying to get out from the Bengals stuff. It just happened to be all the guys I picked up are Bengals. It's not necessarily because I love them. It just happens.
Then we have the classic every down linebacker. With this, you're going to have the guys that we're projecting to start throughout the regular season. Next, you're going to have defensive line tiers. This is where we break down our ranks and where we want to project these players in a season long. And I know Paul and I talk about this so many times. Everybody gets wrapped around where the player is going to finish at the end of the year, but that is not important. It's one of those thought exercises of where they could land, but going through the week to week, I care more about who's going to produce for me when I need them, who's going to win me that week. We'll talk about strategies a little bit later and how we draft. But
I see the season long stuff as kind of predictions, like you're predicting the NFL draft. You're kind of hoping you get what you want.
Right.
You kind of want that one thing to work. And, just like last year, I remember I said I thought Blake Martinez might have a really good year. He looked like it to me. And, sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. I've had a lot more misses than I've had hits in my life. But that's the fun of the season long stuff.
And then we've also got the defensive line stat leaders. This is the tail of the tape. This tells you what happened. It doesn't necessarily tell you why. That's what our podcasts are for.
Yep.
So we weave in between what the stats say and what we see on field. And we'll talk about that more as we get into what we're going to be doing throughout the season. I know we've got a lot of new followers through Podbean, through iTunes, Google Play.
Google Play, new to the fold.
Right. We've been trying to talk to them for a while, and it has been a struggle.
Yes.
Just because the whole picture thing.
Mm-hmm.
If you're new to podcasting, getting your picture up on Google Play has been painful.
Yes.
But they finally have fixed that bug after many emails.
I've seen how you email, just like Madden.
So we've got the defensive line efficiency. This is another one of those tools that we talk about that make this draft kit worth it. We've got tackles per snap. We've got sacks per snap, interceptions, fumbles per snap. This is one of those tools that we've color-coded, and you could just look through it and be like, okay, this guy produced this many tackles, but he didn't have a lot of snaps. So he's one of those guys I'm going to be targeting. One of those guys is Everson Griffin. Everson Griffin wasn't playing majority of the snaps last season. He was playing about 60 to 70, where you would like to see a defensive lineman like Joey Bosa being on the field about 80 to 90% of the time. But he was hyper efficient. So getting him and him having a healthy bill of health, he's going to be producing more efficient for you if the Vikings call him up. We've also got the linebacker tiers. Again, those are the same as the defensive line. Everybody loves linebacker tiers. We go 140 linebackers deep. So I know you deep league guys are going to be looking for something like that. We've also got the stat leaders from last season and the efficiency leaders from last season. Those are color-coded as well. The same thing for the D-backs. We've got their tiers, the stat leaders, and the efficiency. The next thing I want to break down is the stat crew bias. And this
my favorite part of the draft kit, for sure.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Because what we do is we go in, and what a lot of people don't realize on the surface is how much stat crews actually affect tackles for the IDP. You have the ones that are like the Giants, who give a little extra for the home game. So if you're playing home and you have the Giants, you might be getting some extra solos compared to assists. So they're going to break those down a little different with every stat crew.
And the reason why that is important is because the stat crews don't travel. Mm-hmm. And the stat crews will give out more assists to their teams and the opposing teams just because that's the way they judge it. I know we're going to talk about the UFC later on and how we both love it. One thing you see is the way they rank their player or their performance. Mm-hmm. And there are so many biases, and people talk about this and why they don't have the same judges each fight, because then you would know who won the fight, who didn't win the fight. There was a fight tonight, Michael Johnson. He was declared the winner, but it didn't look like he won the fight.
Oh, he won?
He won.
I haven't watched it
He won
yet,
by
so
decision.
Give me some spoilers, but yes, I love Michael Johnson, man. Now I'm going to have to go watch that.
But in the NFL, they have stat crews based on the home team. So wherever the home team is, or wherever they're playing, there's going to be a bias to that stadium and that stat crew. And we kind of spell that out, and that's what derives our strength of schedule. And again, we talked about the importance of the strength of schedule and why we think it's worth the value alone. But you're getting all these other pieces. Auction values. We have auction values for players. This is what we're going to be using. We're going to talk about drafts next. But this is where we value the players, and this is where we would take them. You've also got the auction tracker. This is a tool I created. You go ahead and plug in how much you want to spend before you start drafting in your auction league, and then you put how much you actually paid. And what it does is it reduces the number that you put out as your budget, and it automatically multiplies and divides and does all this this algorithm, and you know what you can have.
Are you using it right now?
I may be.
I might have to hack in this computer. I might tell you go take a bathroom break, see what you got on here.
Next, we've got the defensive and the special teams ranks. This is important for the team defenses that you're going to use in most of your standard leagues, but pairing them with an IDP league, we should probably talk about that. What are your thoughts on having a defensive and special teams component with an IDP component.
I like it because you go with some of the greater sums, or not individually but as a team. I still like it because I like getting players that still have a special teams value. So for me, that's what I really go for. So I like having the full team. And we even had a vote on our league about what we want to do about defenses, and I was completely fine. And I'm a guy who lost in the playoffs because the Jacksonville Jaguars defense was the only reason I lost that game.
Right.
Because they had a 60 point game in our league.
Right.
They just killed it. And as much as I want to be mad that Buck's dad beat me because he just had the Jacksonville Jaguars, I'm not mad. It's just part of the game. That's fantasy football to me.
Right.
And I'm fine having defense and special teams. I was the one guy who was really like, I don't care. Like, I'm cool with keeping it how it is. My only thing would be allocating different defenses because, when we drafted them, Jacksonville was not a sexy pick when we drafted them.
No. They started from the bottom. Now they're here.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I'm stuck with the Steelers and the Colts. The Steelers who were good, getting a little worse, and the Colts who were bad and hopefully getting better. I don't know.
Yeah.
But, my thing is, just redraft one of them. Take everyone's second choice, throw them up, redraft them. And that's something for dynasty guys.
Right.
That really have this issue. That may have this issue. I don't know how everyone scores. If they use our scoring system, they may have this issue last year because the Jags were throwing up disgusting numbers throughout the year.
That being said, the draft kit is important to us because that's what keeps the lights on.
Mm-hmm.
Paul, go ahead and talk to them about what you want to do with it and what it pays for.
Yeah, and all you guys who go onto our website, idpempire.com, and subscribe, that $5 for the whole year. All you guys who get the draft kits, even the premium old ones which we have, and you get all our premium podcasts. So not the stuff we're throwing out here now that's just going to be free. Click on, listen to Podbeam, listen to it while you're working out, pumping some iron, whatever you do with your day. But this money that comes in, we're not just using it just for ourselves. We're putting it back into this website, and we're putting it for future prospecting. And what I mean is we have been talking about making this trip down to Alabama to go to the Senior Bowl. And it's something that we've both talked about and we really want to do because we want to be able to take this show on the road and get actually some of these players that are coming up next year that are hopefully going to be coming out, and we can get them to give us some sound bites on the show or say something on the show, just get that little bit of extra. And so that's really what this year for us was going for. That's why we put so much work into this draft kit. That's why, like I always tell people, I think our draft kit is valued way higher than what we actually have it because just how much work and passion we put into this thing.
Yeah, and our goal is not to take your money. It's to empower you, to make you better fantasy players, to make that money that you invest in your league and make everybody else a donor.
Yep, exactly. You take the draft kit for now $6.99, and then you add on plus your league dues, probably most of you $20, $25. Take that $30 investment, walk away with $200, however you guys divide it out, but walk away with way more than what you put in.
So we've got drafts coming up. I know we start an auction tomorrow.
I didn't want to do it. I got talked into it last minute.
Let's talk about websites for hosting a draft. Your thoughts on your favorite draft website?
If I'm going straight offense, ESPN because it's simpler. That's what I use for my family league. If I actually get people to actually do it, I'm kind of behind the gun. Mm-hmm. For the other ones that I've really liked, I like MFL. Like, I've gotten used to it. I still think there's some kinks that can work out in the system. But I've really liked NFL.
NFL.com.
Yeah, NFL.com. I liked it when we used it when we were doing I think we started, our first year Dynasty was on NFL?
Yeah.
Or if we've been MFL since
No, we started NFL.com.
Because originally we were on Yahoo. Back when I first entered the league.
Back in 2007 or so.
Yeah. And I liked Yahoo then because the thing with Yahoo is they put a lot more articles than NFL was doing at the time and ESPN was doing at the time. Mm-hmm. Now I feel like the NFL has stepped up, but the hardest thing about NFL Network and the thing that I think we all collectively in our community we downgraded was they were not putting stuff for defensive players. Mm-hmm. They were just focusing on articles and updates on offensive players. So us guys who were playing IDP at the time couldn't really get that little extra off that website that's what we want. Yeah. Is to be able to sit here and look at our roster, click on it, and be like, oh, article. And that's what I like about the MFL, is when you get on your player, they give you a list of websites to go look up stuff. So you can go to Roto-World and look up and see what the latest news is. And, even these guys who are on waivers, you can click on them and do the same thing. And that's something the NFL didn't have at the time.
Right.
And I feel like they're still getting better. Again, ESPN, for me, is just straight offense.
Right. For me, I like ESPN because they have the edge rusher. I think that's really important, and it creates a position of value, whereas the Von Millers of the world aren't really highly sought after in a lot of leagues just because they're listed as a linebacker, you know.
Yeah.
Bradley Chubb, you know, that kind of sucks because you're not getting the full potential out of those players.
Mm-hmm.
And what it does is it takes them, puts them in a category where you can utilize them, and you're weighing that same category against everybody else. So I do like ESPN for that. I think it's a little bit chunky whenever you try and manipulate the data. Go to another page, it's hard to really refresh, and it just seems boxy.
Yes.
NFL.com, I like them because they're aesthetic. They're a beautiful website. I think that the drag and drop is a great feature to have. If you don't like the, start, don't start, you know, plug and play, and then save at the bottom. That also automatically saves when you drag and drop, and I love that feature. Yahoo is also doing that as well, and Paul mentioned the player reviews that they have. I feel like they are more up to speed on their defensive players just because the way they utilize their staff.
Yeah.
You look at NFL.com, and this is not a dig towards NFL.com, but they've lost Alex Gelhar, Matt Harmon, Matt Franchise, and James Coe. The only person left is Marcus Grant, and Marcus Grant is the IDP guy for that website. So you're not really getting IDP stuff from NFL.com or their podcast. And that's one thing that when we started this, we wanted our website to be aesthetically pleasing. You know, you move through it, it's smooth, it's easy to go from one page to another, loads fast, and you just get the information that you need. Another thing that we do different than a lot of other fantasy podcasts is we're a niche group, and there are certain things that we provide that we feel that the community wasn't producing, and that's why we wanted to be contributors instead of consumers. You know, so that's a little bit about us. We're going to cater more towards IDP. We may say a little bit about guys that we see on film. We cover every single play of every single game throughout the season. Paul will take 8 games, I'll take 8 games, and we'll crush them. And we will come at you guys with stats and everything else on what we saw and qualitative data on players like Sidney Jones that we think are going to be breakout players but have yet to have the opportunity because of injuries, or Sua Cravens with playing time, you know. So that's a little bit about the websites we like to use. I know we got a little off topic.
No.
Strategy is important this time of year. Let's talk about each individual spot. We'll talk about auctions first.
Okay.
Whenever I'm going into an auction, the first thing I'm trying to do is I'm trying to nominate players that I do not want. And if I can nominate those players and get people to overbid on them, that takes their money down, and then it allows me to have money that I can spend later on players that I actually want. I know Paul and I are going to start an auction tomorrow, and I kind of saw the same thing on who he was wanting to nominate. Websites that we like to use, again, going back to the whole NFL.com, you can have 40 max roster spots. With MFL, it's up to 99. But you do have to pay for MFL. ESPN is 30. Yahoo is 30 as well. So if you've got a big league and you're wanting to have a lot of starters on defense, then NFL.com is probably going to be your spot. Auction, I haven't had a problem with any of these websites doing an auction. I wish there was a blind bidding option for auctions, but I have not found one. I also use MFL, and we're going to do that tomorrow, where you can just nominate a player that you can do a free draft and just import everything if you're a commissioner into whatever league that you want to do. And we're going to move to NFL.com. But another thing about auctions is whenever you get down to the last, say, we use $1,000 as our budget and have 13 or 14 starting players, you have to start filling your depth, and it does not allow you to go on. So you max out, and it spreads your bid amount so you can at least bid $1. So say you get a starting roster and you have very little money, say $20 to fill 10 spots, you max out at $2 each person. So keep that in mind if you spend all your money soon. And also nominate players that you know everybody's going to go after, because then it'll deplete their funds, and then you'll still have that $2 that you can spend once everybody else is gone and filled their roster. And then you can get people like Kiko Alonso or others that just fall through the cracks, you know. Wesley Woodyard was a guy that I had last season. I traded him away, and he blew up. You know, it's one of those stories that you kick yourself at the end of the season. Auction drafts, what is your strategy?
Well, I think Buck learned this strategy because I did it to us the first year we played. And I had that mind frame of, I'm going to make these efforts pay for the guys they want, and then I'm going to come in, I'm going to swoop on the bottom. And that's what I did. At the end of that first auction league we ever did to each other, we went through and I started every single bid at $50. Every single one that went up, as soon as it hit, I hit $50 enter. Every time. Because all of a sudden it jumped up, everyone's like, what? And it just started jumping. Antonio Brown, I think, went for almost $300 in that draft. It was insane. Nuts. And I was like, well, there's half of his budget. Like, we're good here.
That being said, that guy drafted Antonio Brown. Who was the other? DeAndre Hopkins.
He had a whole bunch of
Tom
guys.
Brady, Rob Gronkowski, but he didn't have enough money to build a defense.
Yeah, he had nothing. And then that fiddled out for him, too. But that was my strategy, because we know these guys because we're all buddies and we know each other. So I know who Buck likes. Like, I threw up Ryan Shazier just for the fact that I know Buck was going to spend money until he dropped.
Oh, yeah.
And that's exactly what happened. Then I went at Kenny with, I think I nominated Kelsey or someone else he was talking about, and then he was dropping money. Our buddy Joe, he was hungover, so he missed the whole first half of the draft. So he came in late and was spending money on players that you would never spend $40 on.
Right. Thomas Rawls.
Yeah, that first one was so funny. But, again, what Buck was alluding to earlier is the same thing what I did, is I was able to get Kiko Alonso for $1 later on in that draft, because I had money when no one else was able to bid anything. Right. And I just looked at all these guys, and I'm like, oh, I can easily spend $5. I can only spend $4. Yeah. You know, and that's because I was cool losing some of those top guys because I knew I could fill with depth. But I wanted my strategy was at least get 3 top guys and then fill the rest. And I think I got A.J. Green, Aaron Rodgers, and one other player, running back. I got a top running back, but I don't remember who. It may have been, not Foster.
Todd Gurley, I think.
Maybe, yeah. It was someone else. But I was like, I know I'll blow a little bit of extra cash on these guys because later on I'll be fine. I think I took a top linebacker too, but I don't remember at that point. But that's what I did. I went in. I did get stuck with 2 guys I didn't want because Buck put up, I think he put up like Nate Irving, or I can't remember who he put up, but I automatically was hitting 50 on everything, and I was like, oh, snap. Like, I just did it to myself. But, you know, it happens. But that's always my strategy as Auction League, is play the players, not the players you're drafting. Play the guys you're playing against.
Another strategy is to just wait an hour. You know, these drafts take forever. Like he was saying, we had a buddy Joe who was hungover and didn't wake up for the draft, and he was 3 hours late. So he's got a lot of extra cash that he could spend and buy whatever player because we were all depleted.
Yeah.
And
that was a long day that day because I had my family draft, and then right after that I started this auction league. And the auction league took like 4 hours.
Right. Ugh. So snake drafts, the classic. Whenever you're at the top, go ahead and take the best player available, obviously. If your league allows it, trade back. I always like the classic, trade the second for a fifth and say a seventh or a sixth, because I feel like at the 5th round I can get a lot of good players. Yeah. If you can, try and get a 5th, a 7th, and maybe a 10th, because right there in that spot, you're trading away 1 asset, but you're also gaining 3, you know, and you're also keeping your 5th, 6th, and 7th or whatever. A snake, if you're at the ends, always go get your guys because they're not going to make it back to you.
Yep.
Stretch, you know. Yep. Another theory that I've also played with is in the first round, draft high performance, and then in the second round, go ahead and draft a 3rd round player, a 4th round player, and a 5th round player. Because then you can get players that you actually want on your team and not guys that you're left taking the best player available.
Yep. Yeah, honestly, the snake strategy, I'm about the same way. I've honestly had the 7th or 8th let's go with just an 8-man. Or, we could say 10-man. I've had the 10th, so I've done 10, 11 multiple times, and it's worked out for me. I've, again, gotten the players I like, but I would take one guy I like and one guy I knew wasn't going to be there, or I would take one guy I want and one guy that I think I could trade with later.
Right.
And that it depends on what round. But I don't mind the snake draft. I actually like to be, say, in a 10-man, I like to be in that 6, 7 spot because I like to see who's going to take what and what they're going to need the next round. If I can get those top 5, 6 guys to show me what they're going to be taking in the second round, then I'm going to take what they are going to be taking. Right. So say they start out, let's go 1 through 4 goes running back, 5th, 6th go wide receiver. I'm going to go ahead and take probably another wide receiver, probably not quarterback, depending on if you're IDP, or I'm going to take the first of like another category because I know that's what they're going to need in the next one. Just keep it simplistically, I'd like to just say it's offense for my example. So if I know they're going running back heavy, instead of panicking and being like, I have to have a running back now, I'm going to take another top guy in another spot because they're not going to be there for them next.
Right.
So, and if it's a 2-back league, it changes stuff, but that's why I like the snake draft. I do it with my family and it works out just fine. Right.
Talking IDP, the year that J.J. Watt went off and was like a complete monster, he practically had linebacker numbers as a defensive end. Mm-hmm. There were studies showing that if you took him in the first 3 rounds, you did not place first in your league. Mm-hmm. So looking at one of those higher-end defensive linemen, I'm going to go ahead and take him in the 5th or later because it's not worth it. It really isn't. Linebackers I may take in the 4th round, and that's about as low as I'm going to go because there's plenty of depth there. And D-backs, if you're stuck with picking D-backs, go ahead and wait until the 10th round at least because there are plenty of defensive backs that go unchecked and some of them will fall out of the draft completely.
Yeah, and that's when knowing your special teams value of those guys come into handy too.
Right, if you're in a special teams.
Yeah, exactly. That's, an Adoree Jackson, which when he was a rookie wasn't going that high. Right. So that's what I said about Dante Jackson this year. That's how I feel with him. He has that special teams upside that I feel like could really happen and spark for him.
Right.
But
because we're niche, we're going to go ahead and plug stuff like that. Like we like playing in a league where you get rewarded for kick return. Mm-hmm. So we may talk about that, but
even though they're basically trying to eliminate it at this point in the NFL,
right? Dynasty. One strategy I used the first year we started was I took Ezekiel Elliott the first round. I believe number 4 pick overall. I thought it was a stretch at the moment, but I was like, I got to take this dude.
I think so, because I'm pretty sure me and you and Kenny went 4, 5, 6, and then we switched every time.
Yeah. Second round, I took Mike Evans, and that's been my saving grace the whole time, is taking youth that I saw the potential in, and Mike Evans was established at that point, but he was that wide receiver 2, wide receiver 1 fringe. And everybody went with Antonio Brown, the T.Y. Hiltons, all these guys.
Wasn't the first pick in our draft like Cam Newton? I can't remember who it was, but I know it was a top pick, and I was surprised.
Oh, yeah, whenever he had that crazy year. Yeah. But go with youth. Youth will carry you throughout years to come. And once they start producing, go ahead and cash in and get more youth if you can get more draft picks.
Did I draft in front of you? Because I swear I know I took Gurley in the Dynasty, and that was when they had Jeff Fisher, who didn't do anything, and now Todd Gurley's exploding, and I'm just reaping the rewards. I reaped them all last year. I waited and bided my time, and it worked out. So it's the same thing, I remember still Buck was on the phone literally trying to trade the pick then. He's like, well, if not, I'm going to take Zeke. If you want to come get him. Buck was like trying to act like it was a real NFL draft.
You got anything else on Dynasty? Always be moving, always be cultivating your team,
Yeah, and, again, going back to ours because that's what we know. Later on in the draft, I had some guys circled on my list that I knew maybe potential starters. I lucked out and did Deion Jones and I did Keanu Neal in back-to-back rounds, and it just happened to work. I didn't know what to expect because I don't go for Florida players very often, but I did it anyway. And that was partly just because of my research. I knew the guy who I was going to take with my last pick before the draft started. I was going to take Virgil Green with my last pick. I took Hunter Henry earlier than a lot of people did, but paid off. Now he's hurt, which sucks for me, but
Well, that comes
Life is
back to the way we analyze players in college. And as one season ends and comes to a close, another season starts.
Yep. Yeah, and that's what we talk about in a lot of our premium podcasts. We go through all the rookies and we break down film on all these guys. Even wide receivers, running backs, quarterbacks. We broke down every position, so we do know our offense too. But we went through and talked about all those guys in our premiums.
Yep. I believe there were only 3 people that we didn't cover that got drafted this season.
Yeah.
There were even players that didn't get drafted. But you can find our premium podcast for $5. You get a year subscription from the date that you purchase. And that will cover next year's rookies as well, especially at this point in the season. Again, every little bit counts. It helps us fund our website. Websites are expensive. We've also got the Podbean that needs to be paid for, and that's a weekly or a monthly thing. That helps us broadcast to y'all and keeps the lights on. There's no other way that we'd be able to podcast without it.
Mm-hmm.
Preseason. That's all I plan on doing tomorrow is just watching games. We got the Game Pass. I know I'm going to be busy taking notes. I've watched most of week 1. I still need to catch up on week 2 and week 3. And then we've got week 4 next week. Starting school this Monday, so I'm going to be pretty busy if I don't get it all done tomorrow.
Yeah, and week 4, I mean, there's not going to be a lot to go off of because most of the established starters are going to be resting. Again, it's just roster cuts, and those really probably aren't going to be IDP relevant or relevant for most fantasy people's offense or defense.
Redraft especially.
Yeah. We talked about preseason before we got on air, but there were just some guys that I've watched, I've been hallmarking on, guys that I've talked to, and not only our premium, but our other podcasts that I've really liked. I've been watching Shaquem Griffin. I mean, I can't not watch him after all we've talked about him.
Right.
I thought he's had some good performances. I've seen still the holes that I saw in college, but I see improvement, which I like. Again, preseason you play a different level, but at the same time, he was playing at that fringe with the ones in the second week.
Right.
So I really like that. Seeing him next to Bobby Wagner was kind of cool. I can't lie. Like, that was pretty awesome. Because I see that in the future, hopefully. But other young guys that I've really kept my eye on is Troy Apeke from the Redskins. He's a guy who I really liked coming out of college, still really like. He's had some plays. He's gotten a pick. He's made some good plays in preseason, which I really enjoy watching. Other guys that I've watched, I mean, if we go back to our rookies, I mean, my own team, you look at Oren Burks. He's now going to probably be a starter for all you people who are looking for maybe a guy you didn't really think about drafting or is maybe free in your league. I would probably jump on him. He's going to be a starter now with Jake Ryan getting his knee blown out. He's been taking first-team reps. He's worn the mic in preseason. He's going to be a guy who's going to be on the field. Again, talking about my own team, I've got to watch our cornerbacks play. We watched it last night. We stayed up late and watched the Raiders and Packers game. Of course, we can't not watch it,
3 a.m.
Yeah, it kind of sucks that, Green Bay didn't play most of its starters except on defense, but we got to watch Josh Jackson and Adoree look pretty good. Or not Adoree, good Lord. Josh Jackson and
you love Adoree Jackson,
Jair Alexander. I know, I'm just stuck on him today. I don't know why. But seeing Alexander finally get his first preseason pick, full extension, that was nice to see, man. It was especially with him being a little banged up going into it.
Paul always loves going full extension. Speaking of full extension, let's talk about what we're going to be doing as we move forward into the season. We've got regular season coming up. We did it last year. We had podcast reviews on every single game, every single snap. Players that we see thriving and doing really well, and players that are great and are not performing up to standards. We do heat checks more than anything. It's like, hey, this is a guy that's underperforming. This is a guy that's overperforming. Is that right? Is he going to continue to do that? Why? Is somebody injured? Did he just get more reps? What's going on? Or was he being picked on? If we talk about corners, you'll see a lot of rookies get picked on from veteran quarterbacks because they game plan towards it. Those will be out on Monday or Tuesday. I'll let you go ahead and take that, Paul.
Yeah, that's just going to come down to my actual 40-hour week job, what's going to go on. It's a big toss-up. At my job, we got a lot of turnover, so I'm sticking solid, being that productive guy, just like on here. So, yeah. But most likely it's either going to be coming out on Mondays or Tuesdays, because I might either have one of those, hopefully both those days off if my schedule goes back to how it should.
Right. And last season we had those out Sunday night. I know a lot of people really appreciated that because a lot of IDP websites do not have anything until Tuesday or Wednesday. Mm-hmm. And that means that your waiver wires have already hit, and you guys are in a position where you guys are having to make the decisions. I know a lot of you guys like that control of your own team, but there are a lot of people that really enjoy the thoughtful analysis on what we see and how that can contribute to their fantasy team.
Yeah.
So our goal is to get it out as early as possible, because we know what it means to you, because we were consumers at one point.
Yeah. And then that's the thing, like if we work it out, because I don't get off till late. I get home about 1 o'clock in the morning. So it'd be kind of hard to do a turnaround Sunday night. I'd have to literally pull all niners every Sunday to get it done.
Right.
And I'd probably just sleep. I'd fall asleep watching a game. My head would wake up with the keyboard imprint on my face. I know how it'd happen.
But look for those Monday and Tuesday. Weekly ranks, we plan on having those out Thursday at noon Central Time. Our goal with those is to get you an idea of who you need to start on Thursday, and if they're worth putting in place of guys that you may get. Have you noticed anything IDP-wise with Thursday night football players?
During the beginning of the season, not much, but during the middle of the season, it's going to be how banged up they got the week before. You know, if they were taking some shots, or I feel like the guys who have had high tackle numbers the Sunday before Thursday night game tend to start a lot slower, but then they may finish high. They may get that second wind, so you may not get the initial burst. Unless they come off bye week, that's a completely different monster. But, yeah, for these Thursday night games, I feel like there's sometimes a little bit of lackluster in the beginning with the defensive side, and then eventually they find their rhythm.
Again, going with the whole recap on those players, as we're doing that, we're always looking for waiver wire targets. We're looking for small, medium, and large-sized leagues. Large-sized leagues are going to be the ones on MFL.
Yep.
Just hands down. They're the guys that are starting 7+ per team, having 10 teams. So that's roughly 70 IDP starters.
Yep.
The medium leagues are going to be about 40 to 50, and the small leagues are going to be those leagues that, for some reason, have just one IDP starter.
Yeah.
And those really we're not going to cater to as much, because you should know the Luke Kuechly's of the world. You should know the
What if we played in one of those, man?
That would be absolutely insane.
It'd be like playing Madden on, like, a super rookie. Like, where you literally just have 4 defenders to run around. That's how I'd feel.
But those are going to be coming out on Tuesday, because that's when we should have all of our games done. Those will be on the website as well. You can find those on our little drop-down tabs. Do you have anything else for waiver wire targets?
No, I mean, again, when we started this and I had the idea for it, it was to find those diamonds, man, that are so hard to find in the deep leagues, and that's the information we can never get out. So we're going to get you information on deep guys, you know, and I'm going to give you Buck is very good at being statistical, and I love that he can break down those numbers and tell you maybe who's going to be better next week because of what they put out. I'm a love-hate guy. I like to go on feel. Like, if I feel like a guy's going to do well, then I'm going to take a shot on it. Or if I feel like a guy's going to help me 3 weeks down the road, I'm going to take a shot now and hope he's there 3 weeks from now. You know, and that's what I like about our yin and yang, because we both come from different ways, but then somehow magically it merges.
Right. When I'm thinking waiver wires, I'm also going to be using that draft kit tab with the strength of schedule. That will save your life in IDP.
Yep.
Because I have used it in the playoffs out of pure, like, intuition. Should I start this guy, Yannick Ngakoue? I was like, man, should I start this dude or not? And then I was like, all right, he's got a great schedule. Go ahead and plug him in. And he was all over the map last season. He'd have a great game, he'd have a poor game. He'd have a great game, a poor game. But I knew, because of the competition that he was facing and the ability in this guy that we saw week to week in regular season film study, this guy was going to produce with the left tackle that he was going to be facing. So I went ahead and plugged him in, And that's what's helped me win all these championships. And what championships mean to you is that's how you take money home. You know, all of our in-season stuff we do out of the money that we had made from draft kits throughout the process. So that's really the only way to fund what we do in season to produce for you guys. Even if you don't plan on using the draft kit, please consider it, because that's what helps us stay motivated, helps us get all of our regular season stuff out, because we are not making any money through the season.
Exactly.
We're also looking for writers. We've got one writer, Brendan. He is phenomenal. This kid, he writes really well. He goes in depth with the players that he talks about. You can see his articles on our website. We're really impressed with him. But we're also looking for more people that are wanting an opportunity to write about IDP fantasy and just go ahead and speak from emotion, you know. So if you're interested, hit us up, idpfantasyempire@gmail.com.
Or hit us up on Twitter.
Right.
So, or email, whatever. Hit us up.
Yeah, @IDPEmpire is our Twitter. But we really love the great young minds that we've been seeing. We'd like to see more of them.
Yep.
We're also always looking for ideas, segments, music that you guys like hearing.
I'd really like to have a user show where we get some of the user music. We might even do an intro and outro.
Not only that, but interviews, with, hey, how's your team doing, So many people that we talk to through emails. It's great to connect with you guys, and it would be nice to have you guys on, maybe for just like a short clip, Yeah. Tell us what you're going through in your league and help others realize that this is what fantasy is all about, Talk about things that we've been up to. We've been playing a lot of Madden.
A lot of Madden.
That and preseason film. And we've had a couple fight nights over the summer.
Yeah.
Where we'll sit down, throw a few back, and watch some UFC.
Well, we got to talk about the crowd we had with us, though. The guys that were with us was really what made the fights the fights.
Right.
Right? There'd be a shout out to Jeff. I mean, he finally came over. I got to meet the guy that Buck works out with. Jeff, this is a guy who is like us in IDP, but he's with UFC. He knows everything. He knows ins and outs. He knows these guys' personal lives. And it's awesome to sit there with someone who's such a diehard fan and just get that knowledge just from them sitting there.
Right. Another cool thing about Jeff that I discovered, it's always great in your life to find a mentor or an older man, if you will, to just pick their brain and really get to know them, because he's had a lot of hardships in his life, and I would have never known this had I not taken the time to get to know him at the gym. He's actually the uncle to Tim Elliott, a UFC fighter, and that's how he's had so many of these interactions with those fighters. And it's really a blessing to know the guy and to talk to him, because his knowledge about UFC, he can recall the fight, the round, everything.
What they ate after they weighed in,
right?
How much they drank, how much they lost. Yeah, it's like I met Jeff that one time and I was like, man, he's got to come over more, because this guy is awesome, man. Love that guy. We had a couple buddies that we knew from high school. They came over. We hadn't seen him in a while. You probably see him more than I do, obviously. Yeah. But that was fun, just sitting around watching fights and talking about it. Yeah. Someone fell asleep, but we won't talk about how Trey fell asleep sitting over there in the chair.
Not only that, but after the fight, it's just nice to be with your buddies. And we smoked a few cigars.
Someone kept going on about the Cejudo fight about 45 times, and we're all like, yes, fine. Because that was the only controversial fight out of that whole deal. And, I think Buck said the word incumbent probably 60 times that night after that fight ended. It was so fun to talk about. I love when there's a debate.
Just to get some context behind that. Most of the time in the UFC, if it's a split decision, they'll usually give it to the guy that was the incumbent and had the title before. That being the Demetrius Johnson fight and the Henry Cejudo.
I got you.
Whatever.
I've had to watch him on Ultimate Fighter, so that's the only reason that his name just will not leave. The dude cannot get a good haircut, though. He never has a good haircut.
He lost. I lost money on that fight too. That may be why.
I could just see Buck's face. He's still mad about it. But I love the TJ Dillashaw fight. That one was one that I love it when two guys hate each other so much.
Yeah.
I think that's what makes UFC fun. Is a lot of these guys know each other, good or bad, and so some of them just hate each other.
Or for fun, like you're gonna go in there just to raise more money.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you're pumping each other up to get a paycheck.
Right.
I mean, Conor McGregor coming up October 6th. I've already put in the day off for work, so I know I'm taking that day off.
Nice.
You got to have that fight.
I'm really excited for the Till fight.
Yeah,
this is the dude that told Bisping. Michael Bisping had a lot of problems at the end of his career. Mm-hmm. He started losing his vision, and Till, he's a lot like Conor McGregor. He had shades on and everything else, and then he was just talking crap like Conor does.
Till's also undefeated.
Right,
has won no contest,
and he calls Michael Bisping out over the wave. He's like, hey, he was like, come fight me. He was like, I'd fight you, but you can't see anymore. It was hilarious.
Kind of like John Cena, you can't see me.
Right.
Kind of like that.
Yeah. But Michael Bisping wanted to jump out of his chair. It's great to see that out of a post fight.
I like Tyron Woodley, but I've just liked how he came up, basically from like obscurity for the most part, and just started winning fights.
Other than that, do you really have anything else other than the people we want to thank and really?
Well, we kind of grazed over Madden, but it's so much fun because I feel like we also get a little bit hyped on players just from the Madden cards.
Right.
I think right now I know Kenny's on a big Cam Newton kick because they came out with the Gatorade upgrades so he can go through and get a 91 or 92, whatever he ended up with. I don't know. Kenny winds up with these players like a day after it comes out. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
This is also a guy who has all the solos done at all times already. Mm-hmm. He's almost level 40.
Which is like 500 solos.
It's crazy. I thought I was ahead for a while in the XP. I was like, yes, I'm beating Kenny. And then I had to go to work one day. I came back and he's like, oh, I'm like 2 levels up. How? It makes no sense.
Kenny's a competitor, man.
Man.
He really is. I love that about the dude, man.
But the only good thing is he'll always know what offensive guy's the best now. So I literally don't upgrade my offense until I talk to Kenny, and then I'm like, all right, I'm going to go get this guy, and this guy. I do the same with Buck with defense because basically when we play squads, which is the 3 of us, myself, Kenny, and Buck, we all have our own roles. Buck always brings the defense. Kenny always brings the offense. I just come to play. I basically do nothing.
He just puts the bib on.
I basically play offensive line and I play defensive line. That's all I do. I have no contribution. But hey, Kenny and I actually won 3 games with me playing offense the other day. I was pretty proud of myself. I didn't screw it up. I did miss point afters, though. That's the only bad thing.
I'll tell you what. Nothing gets me more excited than going cover 3 and playing Telvin Smith in the freaking flats and getting that pick 6, man. I get so pumped up.
Did Kenny tell you about the fact he had a pick 6 with Shazier? Oh, man, I was like, this is for you, Buck, and I did the whole Shazier voice. It was so good.
Right.
It was perfect.
Awesome. But Matt comes with a wheelchair, by the way.
Oh, and everyone just unsubscribed. But I've been making those
Ryan
jokes.
Shazier is one of my favorite players, and I hope he gets back on the field.
Oh, Buck's going hard for that ultimate Ryan Shazier, the Mutt Master. But, that's just something that keeps us, really, I feel like football season starts when Madden drops for the most part,
right.
You know? NFL draft, and then after that there's a little bit of a lull, and then boom, Madden comes out, and it all drops.
Well, to be honest, the preseason, you could take a lot from it, but it's a lot of guys playing just to make the squad, And one thing I like to see about preseason is what would happen if somebody got hurt. Who would play, who's getting the nod. One of the guys for the Chicago Bears is John Timu. This guy is a tackle monster, and I know of Danny Trevathan, who's often hurt.
Or suspended.
Right. And Roquan Smith. If they get hurt, who's going to be that next guy up? And that's one of the main reasons why I like preseason. But to me, preseason is kind of a bore. It's one of those things I like to recap it all at once. Just keep it fresh in my mind. Go ahead and store it away a little bit, and then go ahead and move on because I know what we're going to be doing on the weekly. With the weekly recaps, watching every single snap of every single game, those ranks, waiver wire, and really that takes a toll after week 17.
I know it's a struggle.
I know I talked about it with Paul last season. I was like, Paul, stay motivated because at the end of the season, you're going to want to check out because your fantasy league's already done. There are some guys out there who are going to be crazy enough to be playing Week 17, and it's a grind, man.
I was actually pumped for the end of the season. I actually turned it around. Like, I found stuff to find interest in, and I was just super ready.
You're an optimist.
I tried to, because I knew when you told me that it gets to be a struggle at the end. I'm like, I might have to find something to keep it interesting. But I enjoyed it all the way through because I felt like by the time we got to the end of the season, we were having more feedback from you, the listeners, by then. Because we were becoming kind of branching out a little bit.
Right.
Even though it was wintertime, we were still growing.
Right.
And so we kept getting a little bit more feedback, and that kept me motivated. I mean, the reviews, if people go on iTunes or wherever you can drop a review, I think Bobby even has reviews.
Right.
But just drop a review, man. That really helps us out. It gives us good feedback. And that's what we liked getting throughout the season, getting that email from one guy being like, what should I do here? That's the stuff I live for. I love that stuff.
Right. That being said, we do want to thank everybody that has subscribed to our premium podcast, who's bought our draft kit. It means so much to us just selling those draft kits because that gets refunneled back and plowed back into our draft kits next season. All the information that we produce, and it makes it worthwhile. We're not up here just because we want to produce fantasy podcast. We love it, but ultimately we want to support the website and everything else first, or else it's one of those things that we can't continue to do. We want to thank Brendan for writing for us. The kid's nice to talk to. He's going to school down at Georgia. Big Bulldogs fan. I know he's looking forward to the season.
I like the Bulldogs now too, man. They've become my SEC team. I love the Bulldogs now.
We've also got our Twitter. It's at IDP Empire. We started out with 1 or 2 people. I think your mom was one of our first subscribers. And we have grown to, I think, 750 or so. To me, that means a lot because it's all been organic. You got a lot of people who will go out and buy subscribers for $10. I think that's hogwash, But seeing the impact that we've made on other people's lives, I know it's not much. We're just doing fantasy, But it's one of those things where I listen to other podcasts and I always leave reviews because I want them to know what you're doing impacts my life, and I'm willing to waste or spend my precious time listening to you on a weekly basis.
For sure.
Emails. We love all the emails. That's one of the things that keeps us motivated in the season because, again, we're not getting paid for this in season, and it's one of those things where we're like, hey, we're doing this. We're impacting those lives. They're making money off of this, and it's great. I have nothing else I want to add. This podcast is more to talk to you all about what we're going to be doing the next couple weeks, what we like to look at whenever we talk about our drafts and the strategies that we go into them with, what helps us win championships. And if we can share that knowledge and help you win championships, that means more money back in your pockets.
Yep, exactly. And I got to give a special thanks to my mom. She's been a big supporter of our show. She loves it, even though she honestly just plays offensive with our family. That's it. But she still likes the fact that she's actually bought our draft kit just because she was curious what it would be like. And she's like, I don't understand what other draft kits look like, which I've showed her. I've showed her other people's because I go out and scope the competitors. And she's like, I don't understand. She's like, it's so much information. I was like, well, it's what we do.
Yeah.
And I give Buck a lot of credit. A lot of that came from his mind. I just input here and there. But, it's crazy to see how much goes into it, and it's just stuff that helps us. It's helped us win. I'm still waiting for that one championship. I wouldn't get knocked out in the freaking second round of the playoffs. I was freaking undefeated, man. I was 9-0. Like, I was feeling good about myself, and I knew I was going to lose a couple, but the freaking Jacksonville Jaguars, I'm not bitter, but the guy who drafts only Raiders players won a playoff game. That's not fair to anybody. That's not fair at all. I love your dad, but that's not fair.
Yeah. Shouts to my pops. He just turned 51. We talked about that. It's one of those things. Again, reach out to those older people in your life because your youth and everything else provides energy to them, and their wisdom is really worth it, that investment in that relationship.
And never have regrets. Never wish you did more. Never wish you went and saw someone more, saw someone talk to them more. You know, just always give that extra. All right, we pretty much done?
Yep.
All right, we'll close it as we always do. Start building your empire today.